Blue and red lights washed across my backyard, like fireworks that forgot the sky. The music cut mid-chorus. The grill hissed and went quiet, while an HOA lady in a blazer stood on my grass yelling, "Officer, over here!" The taller cop looked at the busted gate latch, then at the private property. No trespassing sign. Then at me holding a spatula like it was a microphone, while the shorter cop's hand slid toward his cuffs. He stepped in the whole yard, holding its breath, and for one long second, the only question left in the world was whose wrist he was about to grab. I'm Tyler Brooks. This is Cedar Hollow Lane in Willow Bend, Colorado, and all we wanted was a small welcome home barbecue for our neighbor, Mr. Alvarez Army Medic Gray. At the temple's smile that warms the block, the kind of man who fixed my mailbox before he learned my last name. My wife Jenna kept the playlist low. You could hear the birds over Marvin Gaye. Our little boy Mason tied balloons to the fence. Ruby, our golden retriever, made friends with everybody's shoes. The flyer said family. Friendly and done by 7. Nothing wild. I even dropped a copy in the mailbox of our HOA board secretary. A woman named Cheryl Mott, always the blazer, always the clipboard, always that pen that clicks a little too loud. Click, click, click. She came by at 10 in the morning with a smile that felt like a parking ticket pointed to sections and subsections, like she was reading weather alerts. Balloons not permitted on the fence line. Section 5.3 gatherings over 10 require 2 weeks' notice. Section 8.1 signage restricted. Section 2.44, I nodded. Kept my voice even backyard. Gatherings are fine. If the grill stays 10 feet from the fence, and we measured 11, the sign is inside the yard, so folks know they're in the right place. We'd love for you to stop by. We even have veggie patties. For half a beat, her face softened. You know when a cloud almost breaks, and then changes its mind, then the pen clicked again, and she said she'd be observing, which is a fancy way to say, filming your life through the slats, like you're a zoo exhibit. Noon came easy. Mike from across the street rolled over a spare propane tank and said, "Pay it forward a little." Lily brought cookies she made with her grandma and asked to be cookie captain. Mr. Alvarez arrived to applause and tried not to cry, and for an hour, the afternoon felt like a holiday. Somebody forgot to name. Cheryl stood outside the fence narrating our lives to her phone timestamp. PM. Open flame near a wooden structure, and I smiled and pointed to the stone patio and the fire extinguisher 2 feet from my leg. She held a decibel app and announced 55. While the birds chirped louder than the speaker. We laughed, we passed lemonade, we let kids chase Ruby around the apple tree. We believed we could land this plane at 7 without scraping a wing. Then the wind knocked our welcome home sign off an inside nail, and it fell onto the sidewalk. I stepped out, pinned it back in place, turned around, and found Cheryl closer than before. Voice flat as drywall. You can't block the sidewalk. Nothing was blocked. Balloons attract wildlife. Raccoons love a good party. Mike cracked a joke, and her lips pressed so thin you could level a shelf on them. At 5:45, the gate rattled hard. The latch jumped, and Cheryl marched into my yard like she owned the grass. Phone up, chin high, 2 men in management polos and a clipboard guy who looked like he wanted to vanish. Trailing behind, cease and desist. She said, "This event is in violation, and your yard is now under inspection." I put the spatula down so my hands were empty and said, "Mott, you can't just walk into our backyard. This is our home." Mr. Alvarez tapped his cane and told her, "Let them have their day. We're celebrating life." But she was already dialing dangerous, unauthorized gathering open flames. Safety risk, and if you've ever watched a storm roll over the hills and felt the temperature drop under your skin, you know that feeling. The sirens rounded the corner. Blue and red rolled over the fence. The taller officer took in the broken latch, the sign Cheryl inside the fence instead of outside me, my wife, my kid, the neighbors clutching popsicle sticks like white flags, and the shorter officer reached for his cuffs, while Cheryl smiled like she'd won something she'd been promised since 5th grade. "Arrest him," she said, bright and breathless, and the officer reached out, metal flashing, and grabbed the wrist right in front of him. Click. Cheryl's. "What are you doing?" she sputtered as her phone spun into the grass, and the tall cop said, "Calm as a pond, ma'am. You're under arrest for trespassing. HOA rules. Don't override state law. You forced entry and refused to leave." And a low ripple went through the crowd like someone finally exhaled after holding their breath for a decade. Yeah, that happened. If that was the end, we'd have been rinsing plates by 7. But when she twisted, she knocked a lemonade table, and her tote spilled a thick manila folder pages fanned across my lawn, and I bent to grab one and froze names. Addresses, notes like subject vulnerable to financial strain, monitor for foreclosure, leverage. Another page said, Phase 2, acquisition targets. And my neighbors leaned in and found their lives written down like inventory. A slick sedan pulled up like it had reservations, and a man in a suit stepped out, a cool voice. "I believe those documents belong to me." He handed a card, Graham Lyle, counsel for the association, called the files standard and necessary for protecting property values. And then the shorter officer popped his briefcase open on the cruiser, and out slid more files. Stamped confidential, a stack of cash in a band and a handgun. And the crowd went from shocked to sharp. In about 2 seconds. What kind of HOA brings a gun to a backyard barbecue? He got cuffed without a scuffle, hissed at Cheryl. That HOA isn't about neighbors. It's about control and leverage. And if you've ever had somebody tell you the quiet part out loud, you know how cold that air feels. A woman in a black blazer came to sweep up after, introduced herself as Marissa Stone. From the board, said the documents were confidential property, and we should think hard about liability. The taller officer told her evidence in an active investigation, and she left with a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. And for a minute, the crickets came back, and the night tried to put itself together. Then, 3 black SUVs rolled in tight formation. Men in suits fanned out like a chore, and a tall guy with a gold tie and eyes like a level line said, "I'm Cliff Darden, president of the Maple Hollow Board. I believe you have something that belongs to us." And Mike stepped up because Mike has never met a line he wouldn't hold, and said, "If by belongs to you, you mean proof. You've been trying to bleed us out of our homes, yeah, and you're not getting it back." Cliff smiled, like patience on a billboard. Said the papers were sensitive internal materials, and if we returned them, this would all disappear. And Jenna cut in. Disappear. Families disappear because of people like you. How many did you push out already? And the officer shook his head at Cliff and said, tonight, this is criminal now. Sarah, our new neighbor who'd trembled all evening, lifted a page and said, "This is your weapon." But not tonight. She tore it clean down the middle, the sound louder than any siren. And one by one, my neighbors raised their sheets and tore them too. Paper falling like broken wings, while Cliff went red and promised that next time it wouldn't be papers. We were tearing, it'd be our mortgages, you know what I mean? The kind of threat that tries to crawl under your skin and build a room. After the officers cleared out, after the SUVs slid away, the quiet felt heavy and honest. Porch lights clicked on, curtains shifted, fear tried to settle back in with its old suitcase, and I lay awake hearing every car like a warning shot. Then in the morning Mike knocked and said, "We can't wait for the city to fix this tonight. Your garage, everyone." We packed that garage with folding chairs and lemonade, and kids drawing chalk dinosaurs on the concrete. Sarah said, "We take the HOA back from the inside petitions emergency vote, whatever their bylaws say." "We do it, Mr. Alvarez said. "They may hold the board, but we hold the homes and homeowners vote." And then Sarah read a salvaged agenda line. "Finalize Phase 3 acquisitions next week." And the air got tight again. 2 suits tried to shut our meeting down, called it a protocol violation. Reached for the paperwork on the workbench until Ruby growled and Mike blocked, and we slammed the garage door. The officer who'd stayed close slipped in the side door and said they're not leaving more SUVs outside, and fear knocked hard, but didn't get in, because an idea got there first. We go loud. We went live every angle, every phone. I held a page to the camera and said my name, my street, my city, told people what was happening. Neighbors lifted their own pages and voices. Sarah read the line that called her leverage and didn't cry. Mr. Alvarez raised his cane. The door buckled. Suits flooded in, and then froze at a wall of phones and thousands of eyes. The officer held the line. Cliff did the math and set out, and the engines roared, and the night finally let us breathe. The next day, the petition filled with signatures faster than we could pass it. A local station called a lawyer, offered help. Detectives took statements in boxes. Mr. Alvarez walked a little farther down the block. Sarah smiled without checking over her shoulder. Mason decided his dad owns 3 spatulas, which is close enough. And I stood at the grill at dusk and thought about the first HOA email we ever got, a porch light that burned out while we were at dinner, and how small that made me feel. People mistake quiet for weakness. Mistake patience for surrender. Mistake kindness for an open door you'll never close. But kindness isn't permission. It's a choice. And when regular folks choose it together, it turns into something with a spine. Here's the part that will start a fight in the comments, and maybe it should. Property values matter, sure, but people matter more. And there are folks who think a neighborhood's soul can be reduced to a spreadsheet and enforced with a clipboard and a threat. Maybe you've met them. Maybe you've been them. Maybe you've been on the receiving end. Like we were. Yeah, that happened. And we're still here. Tell me where the line is for you. When does protecting a neighborhood turn into controlling it? Were we right to go live, or did we pour gas on a fire? If you've got a story about an HOA, about being underestimated, about fighting back without losing your kindness, I want to hear it. Drop a comment. Push back, agree. Argue. Share what justice looks like, where you live, hit like, so this finds someone who needs it. Subscribe for the update on the vote, and I'll see you down there, reading every word.